Welcome, everybody, to the Weekly Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Fabbri, and tonight, I have no Todd Lee as of right now. I'll wait for him to come in. I have a special guest tonight with us. You may have seen the movie Transformer. You may have seen some of this individual's feats earlier on in life as a power lifter and a bodybuilder, but with us tonight, we have Janae Kroczeleski. Janae, welcome.
Thanks, Keith. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing really well, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
This is a big thrill for me. I've followed your career as a power lifter and a bodybuilder for a long, long time. I've seen the movie Transformer. I think I watched it last night for about the sixth time, just in preparation for this interview. So this is a huge thrill for me to be able to interview you tonight. I'm going to give you the floor. I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about your history and anything you want to say. So go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, for the people out there that aren't familiar with me, so basically, starting at the beginning, I had two strong desires from a young age. I was always obsessed with strength training. By the time I was like 5 or 6 years old, I would see somebody big and strong and just be like, wow, that's how I want to be. So that passion for strength sports and the desire to be big and muscular and really powerful has been there since day one. But then at the same time, I was born, as most people would say now, assigned to male at birth. And but by the time I was 5 or 6, I realized I had issues with my gender. I found myself daydreaming all the time about being female. And I was raised like old school Catholic. And by that age, I already knew that in the environment I grew up in, and I grew up in a small town in northern Michigan in a very rural environment, conservative atmosphere. And I knew by the time I was 5 or 6 years old that it wasn't okay to tell people how I felt and that it wouldn't be received well. So the whole time growing up through my adolescence and everything, I was struggling with these two passions. I was your typical jock, played sports year round, baseball in the summer, football in the fall, wrestling in the winter. Yep. And then I was always lifting weights year round. I mean, I started training seriously by the time I was 9 years old, and I haven't had more than a week or two out of the gym since I was 12 years old. Wow. So it was just something that's, for me, it wasn't a hobby. It wasn't like something I, thought was fun to do. It's a passion of mine and a big part of my identity and who I am, and something I've always loved doing. And today I'm 47 and, still train religiously all the time. And, but at the same time, I've had all these issues with my gender, and it made it a very difficult way to grow up, feeling pulled between these two worlds. And, back then that was pre-internet and, pre-social media and all that. I didn't know that there was anyone else in the world that felt like me. I mean, we're talking like I was really young in the 70s, and then I pretty much grew up in the 80s. I was born in 72, so I spent most of my adolescent years in the 80s. And, this kind of stuff was hardly talked about back then. And I think the first time I ever heard about someone being transgender was, I don't know if you ever heard of Carolyn Cossie, but she was in one of the James Bond movies. She was kind of an extra, like one of the girls at the pool or whatever, but she was an international supermodel. Okay. And she got outed after being in that James Bond film. And then at first it turned her life upside down, but then she started doing all this activism, and she was on all these talk shows. And I happened to be home from school one day, sick on the couch, and I'm lying there, and she comes on, and they start interviewing her, and immediately, I was glued to the TV. And I remember the whole time being, super paranoid that someone was going to walk in the room, like my mom or dad or something, and then, wonder, why are you watching this? And I felt so exposed, like everyone could somehow tell, and I was terrified of what people would think if they knew. And but I just was glued to it. But at the same time, I was totally in denial the whole time because... And then as I got older and I tried to research more about it and everything, every trans woman that I ever heard of was, stereotypically feminine. I mean, they weren't like me. They weren't jocks. They weren't into sports. They definitely weren't into lifting. And most of them were attracted to men, where I was, when I hit junior high and puberty kicked in, I was powerfully attracted to women. So between those two things, between being attracted to women and being, this more, very competitive, jock type person, I just didn't see myself as being trans because none of the trans girls I'd ever heard of were like that. Right. It wasn't until I was in my early 20s when I was reading a lot more about it and read a book by a woman named Donna Rose, who was a collegiate wrestler in Canada. And then she was talking about in her book how she was this, college wrestler, and she was training really hard and getting big and muscular. And then at that point, it just like clicked in my head, and I was like, "Oh shit, I'm trans." And then it was like, now what do I do? And but yeah, so there's these two desires, and then so I was a pretty decent athlete through high school, and started competing in powerlifting in high school. Did a couple competitions, got my butt kicked in those, but I was really passionate about it and always trained really hard. Won my first competition in the Marines, and that was like a light bulb moment for me that this was something that I was, I could be good at, and I would definitely, and I already, something I love doing. Like I said, I trained religiously no matter what, but that really spurred my confidence, which I had been lacking to that point. And so then just, as soon as I got out of the Marines, and then in the Marine Corps too, it's probably important, I guess, to mention that I actually got selected for presidential security. Mm-hmm. And I ended up at Camp David. I worked in D.C. for a couple of years doing security for admirals and generals. I worked at the Pentagon and a couple of Joint Chiefs of Staff. And then I was assigned to Camp David for 2 years under President Clinton. And it's funny, too, that people don't think of, the fact that I identify trans, that, they don't think of someone who would be like this alpha male type that would do all these types of things. And but that's who I am, too. I have aspects of my personality that are hyper-masculine and hyper-feminine. And but yeah, when I was in the Marines, when I was in boot camp, I was the one that the drill instructors had picked to be like our enforcer. So basically, if other recruits were out of line, I was the one they sent after them to basically straighten them out and put them back in line. So I was the person you didn't want to get matched up with in the pit, and all those kind of things. But yeah, so then got out of the Marines, went to college, spent 6 years in college. Became a pharmacist, and I was competing the whole time. And that's what the point, like I moved my way from the state level to the national level. And then in my early 30s is when, my lifting was really finally getting to competing at the world level. I qualified for the WPO finals at the Arnold Classic, and then I had a bout with testicular cancer. Mm-hmm. And one thing I was known for, too, is I had a million injuries. I mean, I've had 3 surgeries related to lifting. I ripped off both biceps, had those reattached, both triceps, had one of them reattached, tore my left pec, right quad, left lat, separated my right AC joint, left calf. But, yeah, I mean, basically torn every major muscle group in my body. But nothing ever came easy for me.
Right.
So for me, it was just like, this is a bump in the road. And not anything that I ever saw as career ending. And I was always determined to come back stronger. And so eventually, in 2006, I won the Arnold Classic, which at that time was probably the most competitive contest in the world.
Sure.
And then in 2009, I reached my ultimate goal, which was to total, the all-time total record in my weight class. And I ended up totaling 2551 in the 220s. And I squatted 1,003, benched 738, and lifted 810. And then after that point, I switched over to bodybuilding and then started pursuing my pro card. And I won the Michigan State Championships and competed at Nationals in 2013. And then shortly after that, I was outed by a YouTube vlogger and outed as trans, which I had been out to like my close friends and family, but not out to the general public.
Right.
And of course, you can imagine, somebody who's a top level power lifter and, former Marine and all that kind of stuff. Being out in this trans, it was big news, and that pretty much turned my life upside down for a while. And
sure.
So since then, I've gotten involved in activism, which was something I wanted to do anyway.
Yep.
And, live my life just, the way I have been for a while, which is basically, I identify as transgender, but also as non-binary and gender fluid, meaning that I don't really fit in the strict, binary of just male and female.
Right.
I aspects of my personality, like I said, that are very masculine and very feminine. And I just, I basically just do whatever feels good. I don't worry about what people think about that anymore. I mean, much of my life I was terrified of what people would think. Right. But now I'm very comfortable with who I am, and I just do my thing, and I try to encourage other people to do the same. So that's, I've got 3 amazing teenage sons that I'm very close to, and I've been honest with them since day one. So we have a very special bond, and now I primarily, do a lot of speaking and writing and educating on, transgender people and gender variant people in general.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because that, to me, I mean, I was wondering if you, after the movie Transformer, came out, that if that did lead to anything like that with public speaking and things of that nature that you hadn't done prior, that people wanted to hear your story up close and personal, and how much of that you're actually doing now.
Yeah, well, recently, so like when I first got out of that caused me, like I said, kind of turned my life upside down. Not only did all of a sudden I get all these requests for interviews and all this kind of stuff, but it also cost me like my major sponsorship with, which was with Muscle Tech. They dropped me as soon as they found out I was trans, and which was a shock because I had been with them for like 8.5 years.
Right.
And everyone knew that they were very happy with me, and I knew the whole staff. I knew the CEO, and I wondered for a time if they knew or not. But apparently they didn't. And when it came out, they basically thought it would be bad for PR and let me. And
well, they may have known. They just didn't. They may have known, but as long as everyone else didn't know, type of deal, didn't really care.
There was definitely. I mean, I talked to one of the former athletes reps not too long before that, and because I was thinking about coming out to them anyway. Because I'd already been out to the league FTS. So for those of you that are familiar with the powerlifting world, even Dave Tate and all those people. I mean, they're good friends of mine, and I was with the league for a long time as well. And I told Dave way back in 2007. He was super cool about it. So they always kind of knew and were very supportive. And but I had made the decision not to go completely public with it because of my sons.
Right.
So my main concern was that I didn't want them getting bullied at school or treated unfairly by coaches and teachers. We didn't know how that would go, and they lived in a fairly conservative area, and we didn't know how that would go. So basically weighed all the options and thought, it's better if I just wait until they all graduate, then I'll come out and really get into the activism and stuff. But then, I got out in 2015 and sped things up, but it ended up working out okay. The boys were fine, and the reactions, I mean, we heard there were some parents, talking crap behind our back and stuff like that, but no one said anything to me or to the boys directly. The coaches and teachers all seemed fine with it, or just didn't even, bring it up or address it. And for the most part, the kids that I went to school with were either somewhat curious or didn't really seem to care. So it all ended up working out, but yeah, it was definitely. I mean, getting back to talking about where I'm at now, so I lost my sponsorship. Then some things happened where I lost my pharmacy job as part of this whole thing.
Right.
And then, so I was out of the pharmacy world for about a year. Sent out a ton of applications, took another job at a hospital, and then I just left that job a couple months ago to concentrate on this stuff full time.
Sure.
I've been speaking at conferences, and I knew that was, the speaking and educating. I really felt like that was like my calling. That was important. It was really like what I should be doing and how I can help the most people and how I can really affect lives, positively. And after a conference I spoke at New York City this past June, I just realized, I was like, this is what I need to be doing. Right. This is what really matters.
Yep.
And, put my notice in at work a couple weeks later, and then I agreed to stay on, several extra months to give them time to find a replacement for me. And then I left there in October. And so now I'm just writing, speaking, and trying to educate full time. And it's awesome. A little bit, sometimes worry a little bit about keeping the lights on.
Sure.
But no, it's great, and I'm passionate about what I'm doing, and I feel fortunate to be in this position, and trying to work my butt off to make everything, work out well.
Yep. So the movie Transformer, how did that all come about?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting story. So what happened with that was, so Muscle Tech would shoot videos with me at least a few times a year. Sure. And, we would do a whole bunch in like a weekend or whatever, and then they would, disperse those throughout the year. Well, I had done a shoot about 6 months before I got outed, and the videographer for that shoot was this guy named Brian Hunt from north of Toronto, like Collingwood area. Mm-hmm. And he came out and shot me, and after the shoot, we all went out to dinner, and I talked with him and his wife Narda, and they would seem like really great people, but then when 6 months later, when I got outed, he had heard about it and remembered me. Yep. And he had a friend, Michael Del Monte, who ended up being the director for Transformer, and he told Michael about me, and he said, "Hey, I shot this person, about 6 months ago, and I think this story is really fascinating and something you'd be interested in." And so Michael called me up and, said, hey, Brian pointed me your way, and I'd like to come out and talk to you about a possible documentary. And I told him right up front, I said, look, I'm not interested in, publicity or, anything. I don't want this being any kind of freak show, because obviously with me being me, this big muscular person and being trans, it's really easy just to turn it into, sensationalize it.
Exactly.
And turn it into something like that. And so that was my main concern. I had that happen a little bit when I first got outed, at TMZ and Inside Edition and all these people wanting interviews. And I pretty much granted all of them. And I was real leery about a couple of them. And
Sure.
Inside Edition did that. They turned it into a dress-up show.
Yep.
We shot all this interview stuff. And they told me, oh, no, it's not going to be like that.
Yeah, okay.
And they turned around and if they wanted anyway. So then, of course, I was paranoid about that happening again. And, unfortunately, that was just a little segment, but I didn't want that happening with the documentary.
Sure.
And the thing is, sign over your rights. You have no control over anything.
Right.
And but anyway, Michael flew out to Michigan and sat down with me, no cameras, and just said, hey, this is my vision, and I just think you have a fascinating story. I just want to share it. I think it's something people need to hear. Mm-hmm. And, and I really felt like he was a sincere person and really, honest and had a good heart, and it turned out great. I mean, I ended up being right, and I thought he did an excellent job telling my story, and he basically they followed me around for the 2 years after I was outed, and really, I mean, what people see in the film, it's basically like home movies for us. I mean, there was nothing was ever scripted, there was no expectations were ever put out. It was just whatever I was doing, I did, and they just followed me around and captured it all. And for the boys and I, it was funny because people were asking, was it weird being in front of the cameras all the time and stuff? And honestly, it was more like I had to remind myself that I was on camera,
right.
And that everything I said and did was being recorded, because I got to be friends with that whole crew, over a 2-year period. Seeing these same group of guys coming out, every couple months to film me, we got to be pretty close and
Sure.
all became friends. When we were, we'd be someplace shooting, if I was doing some traveling for surgeries or whatever, we'd all go to the gym together and hang out. But yeah, I'd have to remind myself once in a while, like, man, maybe I should be careful what I'm saying sometimes. Because, everything's being recorded. But no, so that's how that happened. And like I said, I was really happy with how Michael, portrayed everything. And the film ended up being really successful at the festivals, which was a complete shock to me. Sure. I wasn't expecting to win all those awards and everything. So yeah, I thought he did a great job, and I was really thankful for it.
Yeah, I thought the movie. I thought the movie was great. You sit there and watch it, and you just can't help but be captivated by the entire story, and you're into it. It's very, as far as I'm concerned, it's very, very well done. They could have gone a number of different ways with it, like you said, and they could have made it into a freak show, and they didn't. They kept it true to you, and something they obviously you're very proud of. I enjoyed it thoroughly watching it the first time, and then every time I've watched it, I enjoyed it a little bit more because I kind of pick up on some of the things that are said in there and some of the stuff and the interaction between you and your kids, and it's just really a good story. I was wondering about how long that took. You said 2 years that they followed you around, because that's a long time frame. I say you could see how you would get used to the cameras being around. You were already used to having cameras around anyway because of Muscle Tech and everything else, having coming out to shoot you and stuff. So it wasn't anything new there having a camera follow you around a little bit. But to have them there that often, you probably like to the point where they just blend in and it's like not even a big deal. What did your kids think about as far as being on camera with a movie and stuff?
At very first, I think they were a little bit. My youngest especially is not real. He's more of an introvert,
sure.
And he doesn't like being put on the spot. So I think he was a little bit weary. But the thing was, I never pressured them in any way. I never said, "Hey, you guys have to do this."
Right.
I basically, sat down with them and said, "Hey, this is what's going on." The director would like you guys to be a part of it.
Yep.
And I said, "It's completely up to you guys. If you guys want to, that's awesome. And but if you don't, I understand too. And there's no pressure." And my oldest, Logan, was like, well, if this is about your life, we have to be in it. I mean, we're big to that, and that when the story wouldn't be accurate without us in it. So yeah, we definitely want to do it. And then Garrett, Max both agreed. And but yeah, for them, I mean, after the first time, because I think they didn't know what to expect. I mean, like you said, for me, I'd been used to being filmed and interviewed for years with all the powerlifting stuff. But for them, this was all new, and they had traveled with me to the Arnold, and they'd seen me do videos and stuff and shoots for like body .com and stuff like that. But for them to actually be the ones being recorded and mic'd up and stuff. But honestly, probably by the end of the first day, I think they totally just forgot to do. And
right.
with me being relaxed, and we just did our thing. The scenes you see of us going to the pool and playing and going down to the creek and goofing around and throwing snowballs at each other and stuff. That was just our normal everyday life. And
that was my favorite part. The snowballs flying and hitting each other in the face. So that's my favorite part of the whole movie.
Oh my gosh, it was so funny. And then I was thinking too, when Max is jumping on those pieces of ice and stuff in the creek, I'm thinking, oh my God, people are gonna think I'm the worst parent ever. But no, that's what we did. That was just how we had fun and goofed around, and like the chicken fighting in the pool when they're on each other's shoulders. I was laughing so hard during that. That's one of my favorite scenes too.
Yeah.
But that was just us being us. I mean, that's even to this day, that's still exactly how we are. So it was a lot of fun.
The jumping on the ice thing, that's something me and my brother used to do. We had a little pond that was like a swamp back in the woods behind I grew up in a country area too. And we had one, and it would freeze over, obviously, but sometimes it wouldn't be quite frozen just like that, where you would have spots that were real, and we would basically play chicken with it and see who would go through the damn ice, try to find that spot to see just how hard you could jump on it before you'd go through, and it's like 20-degree water underneath there. Hypothermia. Yeah.
We pretty much always did it until somebody got wet.
Right, and then it was like, okay, got to go back in now. Yeah, that was good. That brought back some memories too of us just doing stupid shit like that too. But it was fun. It was this fun, stupid stuff, and it was really cool to see you doing that as a parent with your kids. It's like you're the big kid daring the little kids to do the dumb shit and saying it's okay. We'll dry you off later. It's not that big a deal. Yeah, because that'd have been me doing that with my brother.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess some people would say I probably never grew up, but I just never understood that either. When I think at one point in the film, my dad says something about me, being a big kid and always playing and stuff. But I was like, why not?
Yeah.
I still want to go off the rope swing and dive off the bank into the water and all that kind of stuff. And we just always had a lot of fun with it. And the boys and I, every time we do stuff, it's we're always laughing and having a good time. So it's a lot of fun.
You mentioned your dad, and in the movie, your dad, very old school, obviously, wasn't exactly supportive of the whole transgender thing. Has that changed to this day, or is it still kind of the same, or has it gotten better, worse? What are we looking at?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, he finally has. Last Christmas, we had a separate dinner. My mom did it basically. My mom remarried about 10 years. Well, she's probably been 15 years ago now.
Okay. Yep.
But so my mom and dad got divorced after 30 years of marriage. My mom remarried fairly quickly, and so now there's a step family. Well, after I got outed and I started presenting, when I started presenting, feminine much more of the time, and especially for get-togethers and anything, anything formal, I would definitely the thing is for me, like I said, I have a masculine personality in some ways, and I'm very athletic. So, but things like a suit and tie that was ungodly uncomfortable for me. It made me feel really weird, and
well, that's because you're so fucking big. It's uncomfortable for me too. But yeah, I can imagine it's not your thing, But,
I mean, uncomfortable physically, but also uncomfortably psychologically.
Right. No, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically, it'd be you being forced to wear a dress and heels. It just doesn't feel. And you feel super awkward. You feel you just stick out like a sore thumb, and everything just feels wrong with it. It made me really uncomfortable. I always hated. I hated wearing a tie to anything, and I never went to dances or prom in high school and all that stuff because I just couldn't. There was certainly with sports it was fine, but when I was expected to play a masculine role in those ways, it completely weirded me out. It made me super anxious and uncomfortable. To the point where it was so bad that I had to avoid it. Right. It was just I just couldn't do it. And so yes, anything formal. If I'm going to a wedding or anything like that, I'm 100% of the time I'm going to be presenting very feminine and wearing a dress and stuff like that. And so my mom, I don't know, I guess she was uncomfortable with how the step family might feel about it. So I basically haven't been. This year I finally was for Thanksgiving. for the first time in a long time. But basically didn't get invited to Christmas and everything for like last 5 years or so. And then so last Christmas anyway, my dad, we had a separate dinner here, and I invited him. And then when he realized I was going to be, wearing a dress and makeup and stuff, he was like, well, I'm not coming in then, and all this stuff. My boys went outside and talked to him. He ended up coming in, having dinner with us, and it ended up being fine.
Okay.
I mean, he wasn't thrilled about it, but he interacted with me and everything, and he still doesn't really. I was impressed though. He did finally watch the documentary himself,
right?
And that was without any pressure from me. And we talked about it a little bit afterwards, and he just said that he was shocked that I felt that way, and that he never knew all those things. Okay. So it made me feel good that he actually took the time to watch it and actually paid attention, and didn't realize like what a big aspect of my life it was. And so maybe he's still like, I definitely wouldn't call him like overly supportive,
right?
But it's really better than it was during the film. And I think he still doesn't understand it, and I still think it weirds him out. And I think there's a big part of it too, is that being old school, coming from a small town, I think he feels a pressure that him as a father and as a man, he's not supposed to be okay with it.
Right. Well, there's an age gap thing there. I mean, you're talking generation gap to where the thinking that's ingrained in his mind, it's maybe not necessarily his thinking, but what's the thinking of others if he is, completely supportive and accepting on that, and he doesn't know which way to go. Would you say he's accepting now then? He doesn't like it, but he's necessarily more accepting of it because he can interact with you now more so than he could before.
I would say that he was clear that he still wanted me in his life, which was really good. I guess accepting with some conditions or with some hesitation. But definitely better than how it was. I think actually seeing the documentary himself and hearing me talk about some of the things, I think that kind of resonated with him, and he didn't realize like what a deep thing this is. The first time I told him about it, he kind of like, it was almost like he tried to talk me out of it. Like this was just something I decided on a whim.
Right.
Like, that was fun,
Yeah.
But now I think he gets it more and realizes like this is just part of my core identity and who I am, and something I've struggled with all my life. I wouldn't say he's, we're not doing any father-daughter dances or anything, but he still wants to be part of my life. So I definitely,
right.
It's better, I guess, put it that way.
Okay. I was just curious on that because if you look in the movie,
yeah,
he's very adamant that he doesn't like it, and he makes no qualms about it that he doesn't like it. Yeah. But he does say in the movie, that's my son, that's Matt, this, and he continues to say, but you can see that it's bothering him, but you can also see that he loves his child, and he's not going to turn his back on you. I was just wondering if that had gotten better since the movie had been recorded and stuff, because we've had some time now. It's been 4 years since you finished filming that? 3 years?
About 3.
You were 43 in the movie.
Yeah, because we started filming in fall of 2015 and then finished in spring of 2017.
Okay.
So almost
3 years. Okay. Yeah. A lot can change in 3 years, obviously, with mindset, people and stuff, and attitudes and towards things and anything in life, but especially something like this is as deep as it is, family rooted, and it's a thing like that. I was just kind of curious how that was going. Your kids. I saw your one son is in college now. Is that where is he in college?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a junior at the University of Michigan.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And then your youngest, how old is he now?
He's a senior in high school now.
Good Lord.
He'll be 18 next month in about 4 weeks exactly.
Does he understand anything about your car yet? That part was hilarious because I don't understand any of this. I'm like what part? Spark? Anything? I was laughing. I had a good time with that one.
To know Max, that is so Max. It's just so funny. I was glad it came out that way in the film. You really get to see, I think, the boys' personalities and they're brothers, and they're all really close. And the funny thing is, they're all like me a lot, but in different ways.
Different ways. Yep.
And, and Max is like my goofy side, but he's also, he's just, that's just him. That's just him being him. He doesn't try to be funny. He just is.
He just is funny.
And, it was, he the funny thing is, he's actually really into pole vaulting. Right. And that's like his big sport now. And I just he had a tournament on Saturday. He's got another one this weekend, and he's doing pretty well. He's got a really good chance of qualifying for states this year.
Good for him.
And, so that's pretty cool. But he's like, the other two are really into cars and stuff. Max, not so much.
Right.
He's more of like a gamer, and like I said, he loves his pole vaulting and a few other things. But he's hilarious, and he makes us laugh every day. Nothing's ever boring with Max around.
In the movie, your relationship with your kids comes out in full force, and you can see just how much they love you as a parent, regardless of what gender you are. They don't even care. And you said that you told them and you were honest with them since day one about the whole thing. Talk about that, of them growing up, and how that kind of basically how that all came about, and how that kind of shifted, everything kind of shifted throughout the years, because I'm sure there was a lot of ups and downs with that as far as with them. And you said that you didn't want to come out mainly because of your kids and because of what you were afraid of happening to them in school with bullying and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that was it. And we thought about that when they were younger, but honestly, like, it really hasn't been tough with us at all, and that's what a lot of people have a hard time believing. And even the director said when he interviewed the boys and just saw us interacting together over that 2-year period, he thought for sure there would be times where they were like, yeah, we kind of wish my dad wasn't this way or something like that, but it's really not like that. They really, like you just said, they really don't care.
Right.
To them, they've known this about me their entire lives. So, like, I told them when they were 2, 4, and 6, and they basically, I discussed with their mom, and I said, hey, I think this is something that it's important to be open with them about, and she completely disagreed.
Right.
She was like, oh no, it's going to mess them up, and thought it would be all this and that, and she wanted me to hide it from them. And I said, no, look. I said, what will mess them up is if I do hide this from them, it's going to come out sooner or later.
Yep.
And then they're going to wonder, why did you lie to us? Why did you hide this from us? And especially if this is nothing to be ashamed of, then why hide it?
Exactly.
And I'm a big believer in, like, honesty and integrity. And I just, it never felt right to me to try to hide anything from them. So when they were 2, 4, and 6, and I just, I had a very basic conversation with them and explained it in a way, that was age appropriate for them. And, Max was so little. And Max and Garrett, I don't think even really remember that initial conversation. I think Logan's the only one who kind of does.
Yep.
But basically, I called him into my room and said, hey, this is, like, explain it in very basic terms. And I said, well, I'm going to change my clothes now. I'm going to get dressed, and we'll just do, what we do every day. And I just wanted to talk to you guys first. And they were just like, oh, okay. Well, they were young enough where they hadn't been exposed to, like, any prejudice like that. So they never had reason to believe that it was anything to be ashamed of or to be wrong. And I changed my clothes, put on my makeup and stuff, and I called them all into my room. And they, they're like 2, 4, and 6-year-old little boys do. They're all running around, being noisy and stuff. Mm-hmm. They come, bubbling into the room, and they just kind of all look at me. And then Logan, the oldest, goes, he's like, wow, you look like a girl, a really, really big girl. We all just kind of started laughing, and they went right back to playing without missing a beat. And that day, we did our normal things and, hung out and played. And from that day forward, it was just, sometimes I, wore makeup and feminine clothes, and sometimes I didn't. But it was just something that was always there, and it was never hidden. And, so for them, it was that's just always who I've been. So they never thought anything of it. And we've, like I said, like you see in the film, we have a really, really close relationship. And I think, honestly, it was key in building that, too, because they knew by the time they got a little older, they knew that if I was open and honest with them about that, I was going to be honest with them about everything.
Everything.
So it really established a strong bond of trust. Mm-hmm. And they knew I would never lie to them. They knew I would never deceive them. And that's really, I think that played a huge role in us having the close relationship that we do.
Well, and it makes it easier too for them knowing that you're that way with them, that they can be open and honest with you about anything they have going on in their lives and stuff, and that just strengthens that bond even more. So, they don't feel like they need to hide something from their parents because they're going to get in trouble. They may know that they're probably going to get in trouble for it, but they know that you're going to be fair with them and that there's a reason why. And they can trust you as a parent that, hey, look, this I have to be able to tell my parents about this stuff. You have a lot of kids and teenagers that want to hide shit from their parents and stuff, and I don't think that they don't have that strong bond. Obviously, you have that with your kids.
Right.
And that's, again, that's a testament to you being open and honest with them about, which was really, honestly, the most, the heaviest thing going on in your life and the deepest rooted thing that you had emotionally in your life, and you could share that with them at such a young age that there's nothing they probably can't talk to you about, and that you're going to be understanding.
Exactly. They knew I was never going to judge them. They
Right.
knew that they didn't have to be afraid. And they knew they never had to feel bad about anything. Like,
Sure.
if there was something bothering them, I wasn't going to, make them feel like there was something wrong with them. So,
Right.
yeah, it definitely, if any other parents were going through the same situation, I would encourage them to be honest with their kids as soon as possible. And it gets a lot more difficult when the kids are teenagers and all these things are established. And then, in a lot of families, and a lot of times people, like trans people, especially trans women, don't come out right away because they're afraid of how everything's going to go.
Sure.
And then when you come out later in life, and if your kids are in their teens or 20s, now they're having to adapt to this part of you that they didn't know anything about, and they feel betrayed, they feel lied to.
No, and it makes
exactly. It more difficult.
Now, your everyday, day-to-day life right now, you live your everyday life as a woman, correct?
It's kind of blurry, I would say. Like, I don't wear makeup and have a wig on every day, but I don't, I'm kind of this gender blurry person.
Okay.
My nails are always painted. I carry a purse. 90+% of all my clothes are female. Mm-hmm. My jackets. So I think, but because my hair's thin too much to grow out on its own, and I'm very active, I still love the outdoors. I love going to the beach. I love to mountain bike. So a lot of those situations, wigs just aren't practical.
Sure.
And I honestly don't know how people perceive me on a daily basis. I think I definitely, like, if I have hair, my wig's on and I'm wearing makeup, I generally get perceived as like a female bodybuilder.
Mm-hmm.
That's generally how I get read. And but then there's times too, like, I think people, when I'm not wearing a wig and my head is shaved, I don't know if they think that, I'm just a gay guy or what they think, right. or just somebody who's different and does their own thing.
Right.
I honestly, I don't worry about it. I stopped worrying about all those things because it just gets overwhelming.
Wow.
And
it's easy
to say, and it's a lot easier to say than to do. Just be like, I don't care what anybody else thinks.
Right.
It's easy to say. The reality of it is,
you do.
What other people think affects your life and how they treat you. And but I really, these days, I just do my own thing. And I have a girlfriend. I've been in a relationship now for over a year and a half. And
awesome.
If we went to one of her families on our mom's side of their wedding a few months back, and we both wore long dresses, and I was wearing heels and all dolled up. And her family, her mom's side, is awesome. They all really like me, and I get along with all of them really well. So like I said, I guess it's blurry because I can't grow my hair out and because of my large muscular body still. I mean, granted, I'm a lot smaller than I used to be, but I'm still probably about the biggest woman you're going to see.
How much do you weigh right now?
So I think the thing is, it's not intentional. Like, that's just kind of how my life is. Like I said, if I'm not wearing a wig or makeup, I kind of look like this big queer person. And so I just do my thing, and whatever people think, they think, I guess.
Right.
I don't worry about it. But I definitely, like, my license, my birth certificate's been changed to female.
Okay.
My driver's license says I'm female. It has, in the picture, I have blonde hair and makeup on. Same thing with my passport. So, all my documents, all my records. I guess you would say I exist as a woman in society.
Well, and it's obviously, like you said, if you're going to do something active and stuff, and you're forced to wear a wig, the chances are coming off and blowing off or something. It's just not practical sometimes. Whereas if you had your own hair, you could just pull your hair back and call it good. You can't do
yeah,
that. That doesn't mean you're still not living your life as a woman, because that's how you identify now, as you are a female, and that's I was just wondering if you were still going out in public as dressed as a male, or if it's just all female all the time. Because I know in the movie, and I know this is 3 years past now, you are still kind of back and forth. There's shots of you where you're dressed as in male clothes, and then there's times when you're dressed in female clothes, and now you're just basically it's just all female clothes for the most part.
Yeah, except for the fact, like I said, without a wig and makeup on, people probably read me as male.
Sure.
So like I said, I just stopped worrying about all that. So I if I'm sure when people see me, and then some days too, like my mannerisms are just more naturally feminine, and sometimes I probably come across as more masculine.
Sure. And
it also depends on like who I'm interacting with and things like that. Like I'm sure if you see me with a bunch of my powerlifter buddies, you're probably going to see the more masculine side of my personality than if I'm hanging out with a bunch of my girlfriends and we're going to get our nails done or something. It's
completely different. Yep.
Yeah, so I would just, it's definitely my identity is female. But I would say my presentation, just because of my body and unable to be growing my hair out and stuff, is that I'm pretty blurry. You know?
No.
So.
It sounds to me like you're just living your life as a tomboy female. That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
You like to be active. You like sports. You like to lift weights, but you're still living your life as a female. And that's how I would read that as, and that's shit. That's. I think the way you describe that is like how any tomboy female would be when they're around a bunch of their guy friends. They're gonna talk a lot more shit, and they're basically gonna be like more like be like one of the guys, and they're cool. You're cool with that girl, and then you're gonna have when they're with their girlfriends and stuff. Obviously, there's gonna be more feminine talk and chatter and stuff, and that's just how they're gonna adapt to the situation.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate. And, like I said, I mean, if I could, I would have much longer feminine hair that I would probably wear back in a ponytail most of the time. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And, still waiting for them to figure out with stem cells how to grow my hair.
How to grow your hair again? Yeah, I got the same problem. I don't have any. My shit started falling out a couple years ago, so I'm shaved all the time now too. It's like I kind of wish I could have hair again, and I can't, but. For different, obviously, just not the same reasons as you, but I just wish I had it because I liked my hair when I had it. Yeah. I look at pictures of myself with a full head of hair, and I'm like, "Fuck, why'd that happen?"
Yeah.
Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about some training. What's different with your training now? Now that you're you're living your life as a female and stuff. Obviously, you're not. We talked a little bit about this before we went on air. You're not training as heavy anymore. You're not doing some of the heavy movements, the powerlifting type movements anymore. That's gone. So what are you doing now?
Yeah, well, I would say my training hasn't changed a ton. I mean, I do a lot more cardio now than I used to, and honestly, that's for as much of quality of life as anything.
Sure.
I've really gotten into mountain biking, and my girlfriend and I do a lot of that. And I'm starting to get into rock climbing and doing some other things. I mean, I've always been the kind of person who enjoys anything athletic.
Right.
I've always loved the outdoors. And I just want to be a more well-rounded athlete. But I still struggle, though. I still miss being as big and strong as I was. Sometimes it really bothers me. I mean, I think for any athlete, anybody who competed at a high level for a long period of time, it's hard to walk away from. I mean, it's a big part of who we are. I'm a natural competitor. I love to compete in everything I do. If you watch me and my boys play ping pong in my basement, I never let them win anything, and we have a lot of fun with it. But it's hard. I still feel the call to competition sometimes, and but at the same time, it's difficult too because I mean, while I've kind of let go of that whole idea that I have to be, look like a Victoria's Secrets model to be a woman. At the same time, I don't want to have to do some of the things it took to be competitive at a world level. And, so it's tough. I mean, I go back and forth, and the people close to me will tell you that I struggle with it.
Sure.
I mean, I still, I go through phases where I diet down and get thinner, and then I feel like there's certain things that's pleasing for me, and then there's But then when my strength starts dropping really bad, or I get below a certain level, then I start freaking out and start putting me back on. And I don't know. I think eventually I'll probably end up dropping down a fair amount. I mean, I'm a good 50 pounds lighter than what I was at my, when I was competing, but I'm still, like I said, I'm still quite large. And now my weight range is, the lowest I've been in the last few years is like 200 pounds. And then I've gone, and a couple times when I went back up, like, kind of thinking about getting back on stage competing again, I've gone up as high as 250. But I would say most of the time I probably hover between 215 and 235, which, I'm hair under 5'9", so that's still quite a,
right. That's a large person to begin with.
Yeah. So there's a part of me that would, I definitely, all the time struggle with like wanting to drop down to about 185 or so, or 180. I think my ideal feminine physique would be similar to what the top CrossFit women look like, very muscular, but lean and athletic.
Okay.
And all around. But then there's an issue too, that my body, for the last 20 plus years, I've been 250 pounds or better. So it's very difficult. Like that's my set point has been reset. And for me to get anywhere under 230, my body doesn't like it.
Right.
I have to diet down hard. And then when I do, my metabolism starts to slow. And, and then as soon as I start eating normal, I go right back up. So, right. It would take a long-term committed effort. Initially when I decided to transition, I dropped 72 pounds, but and that was like in a 4-month period.
Yeah.
And, but I dieted myself into a corner. I treated it like a competition, and I wasn't thinking, smartly, and I wasn't thinking long-term, and that this really needs to be a lifestyle change, not a contest diet.
Yep.
And I got down to a point where, you know how it is when you're dieting for a show, you're starving 24/7, and all you think about is food and training.
Yep.
And I realized, I'm like, I can't do this for the rest of my life.
That's not a way to live.
No. So I think it's something I'm gonna have to do slowly. Like,
sure.
Justin Harris, who's a good friend of mine, and as well. We've talked about me slowly whittling down to, a smaller weight. And I have some goals this summer. I want to run a sub 60-second 400. I've toyed around with the idea of trying to run a sub 6-minute mile, and maybe a sub 25K, which that would be really, really difficult for me at this point. I would definitely have to drop a fair amount of weight. And in the past, when I was in the Marines, I ran an 18-minute 3 miles. So I was kind of more of a natural runner. It was actually fairly decent at it. But for me to do those things now, I'm going to have to, like I said, I struggle because when I start thinning down, I feel more athletic and my endurance is better, and like my mountain biking improves a ton, and I definitely like how I look in feminine clothes much better. But at the same time, then I start losing strength, and my strength really starts plummeting. And like some of my lifts, like my squat and bench are, everybody's is, but mine are extremely sensitive to weight changes. Okay. And it like gets to a point where, when I get weak to a certain point, it really starts to bother me. I still am passionate about strength training. So it's something, to be honest, it's something I'm still trying to find a balance with, and keep going back and forth. If you had to ask me to predict the future, I would say it's a good bet that I will end up eventually getting down there. I don't know how much longer that will be. Right. But that's probably where I'm going to end up at. Not just, for those reasons, but also just for health in general, right? No matter how lean you are, how good a shape you are, it's not healthy for a person who's, I'm a hair under 5'9", to be 250 pounds forever. That's a lot of work for your heart and your cardiovascular system. And so for those reasons too, but it's, like I said, at heart, I'm a strength athlete, and it's something I'm very passionate about, always have been, always will be. And it's a difficult part of my life to just, walk away from. And not that you have to totally walk away from it, but I'm the kind of person, I do 100% really well, and I do 0 really well. Trying to do anything 50% is really a struggle for me. Right. So in those concessions and like, it's like I said, it's just, I think anyone who's been an athlete at a high level for a long time can relate. And, trying to walk away from that sport and trying to walk away from doing what you love at the highest level possible and doing it to the best of your ability, it's a hard thing. It's difficult. And I'll be honest, I still struggle with it.
Yep. So, yeah, you like you said, you just touched on it with your set point being that big for so long, it is going to be extremely hard because that's a lot of muscle you've accrued over the years.
Yeah.
For that to go away, that's why I laugh when people do contests. I say, "Oh, I'm just going to end up losing muscle." Do you realize how fucking hard it is to lose that muscle, especially if you've had it for a long time? We're not talking about like brand new 6-month muscle that you just put on in the last 6 months. Yeah, that tissue's gonna go.
Right.
But you've had this muscle tissue on your body for 20 plus fucking years, and at your biggest for quite a long time. It takes a long time to be able to get that. It doesn't just go anywhere. And you said crash dieting and everything else. You dieted yourself into a corner. Your metabolism slowed down. Your body's going to start to preserve some of that. It's not going to get rid of it because it's going to go into starvation mode. So even then, it's hard. You literally have to get to the point where your body just says, okay, you're feeding it a little bit less calories over a long haul period of time to where it says, okay, and you're not using it anymore. You're not lifting heavy to where your body needs that tissue because it wants to hold on to it because that's what it's adapted to do. It takes a long time to get rid of that.
Yeah. And I mean, to be honest, the estrogen, did make a significant difference with that too. And I mean, when I first went on estrogen and stopped taking, testosterone and everything else, I mean, my strength plummeted like you wouldn't believe. Then I also had the added issue of gaining body fat.
Yep.
And I've always been a very big eater too. So then trying to adjust my eating habits and all that. And to be honest, I think gaining a significant amount of body fat actually bothers me more than losing muscle, getting weaker. I can handle being smaller and very lean as long as I stay lean, but being small and, less athletic and stuff does not sit well with me. And, so as I think any athlete would feel that way, and most people in general, but yeah, so it's something I'm still trying to find a balance with. I mean, to be honest, I've gone on and off estrogen several times over the last few years because of that. Mm-hmm. And I'm back on a normal estrogen dose and working with a physician that I could, and that's one thing I tried to talk to different doctors too, like, 'cause initially, I lost a whole bunch of muscle and I'm gaining this body fat, and it wasn't going where I wanted it to. I wasn't getting the breast development that I wanted, and I was getting fatter, but like it wasn't going to like my hips and thighs. It wasn't like I was getting all curvy. It was going to my stomach, which I felt was making me look less feminine. Right. So I was like, this is a lose-lose situation, and I mean, I did like some of the changes. I liked the changes in my skin and some of the other things I felt, and my breasts were starting to grow, but very, very little, and so it was frustrating. So there's, so after a while I stopped it, and then now I've restarted it, and it's a process. And one thing, like, I try to, it's so hard, and I think for everyone, to block out like outside influences, right? Like, it took me, when I first started going out in public, I mean, imagine, walking out in public as a 250-pound muscular woman, you're going to get stared at everywhere you go. Everywhere. And especially when I first started going out, and my makeup and fashion skills weren't very good. Mm-hmm. I just looked like most people were like, "What, WTF?" And I realized that, but it's not an easy way to live, right? Like, people treat you weird. You get treated like a third-class citizen, and there were some instances I got treated very, very poorly. And going from someone who was like this high level athlete and former Marine and a medical professional and used to being treated very well, it was a really, really hard thing to stomach. Right. And also, but it was great. I grew a lot as a person. It was great to learn this, experience everything from this new perspective and understand, what it's like to be treated that way in society. And for some people to like treat you like you're less than human. I mean, it was difficult, but it also really helped me grow. And, so then after a while, I just got to the point where I'm like, look, this is who I am, and I don't really care what anybody thinks about it. I'm not going to let what other people say or do stop me from doing the things that I really enjoy and feeling like myself. Right. So it's, it's a journey. It's a path I'm still walking, and, still figuring some things out. And like I said, I'm sure I have my insecurities just like everybody else. And another whole aspect of the strength thing too is that this surprised me. I forgot about this. Like when I dropped from 272 pounds all the way down to 200 in like 4 months, I started feeling really vulnerable. And I got bullied a little bit, like in junior high and stuff when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember really hating it. I absolutely hated feeling scared. And there was a couple times, you have those kids in junior high that have beards and, have puberty whatever. And I was kind of a late bloomer. Kids being kids in high school and getting, cornered in the bathroom and having kids threaten me for no reason, just kind of showing off for their buddies.
Right.
But being terrified and hating that feeling of vulnerability. And then so when I lost all this weight and then realized like people are starting to treat me different and not with the same level of respect I received before, and then I'm existing in society as a trans woman, it was a tough adjustment. And something, to be honest, it didn't feel good, and it took time to get used to. And so there's still that part of me too, I think, that wants to hang on to the strength and size because it makes me feel safe.
Sure. Yep.
Knowing I can protect myself and protect the people I care about, and getting significantly smaller and weaker makes me feel vulnerable, and it's still something that I'm trying to come to terms with and be more okay with. But it's hard coming from somebody who didn't have to even think about those things to have to deal with those issues. Like, perfect example. There was one night a few years back. I was coming out of a club, and I was alone that night. Usually, if I did those things, I was going with a group of friends. But I was alone, and it was like 2:30 in the morning, and 5 guys followed me into a parking garage and almost jumped me. And it was kind of the scary thing was I never saw them. And as soon as I got in my car, and then as I closed the door, they're standing like right outside the window, literally like 6 inches from my door, staring through the car window at me, and basically kind of had my car sort of surrounded on the one side. Mm-hmm. And then they were all mugging me, giving you that look that
Sure.
guys do when they want to fight or they're looking for trouble. And none of them said anything. And I just kind of tried to play it off like I wasn't really paying attention to them, but I quickly then locked my door, put my seatbelt on, started my car, and backed out. And they just kind of all stood there and watched me, pull out, mugging me the whole time. But I honestly think the only reason they didn't jump me was because of how big I was. I mean, it was in the summer. I was wearing this like spaghetti strap dress, so my shoulders and arms were all showing, and it was clear I was still very muscular. But it was obvious what their intentions were too, and I think it just, they hesitated enough, or maybe just caught up with me as I was getting to my car. And the weird part was that I never, saw them. I didn't know where they came from, and there was no one else in the garage. And this was typically in a town that's very safe and very friendly. And but I realized that day that now I can be a target, and I had to learn what so many girls learn when they're young is to be very aware of your surroundings, and to be aware of things like that. And that was not something that I was socialized to do. And so it was another big adjustment, living life's different ways and thinking about things that you never, things that are threatening that you never had to worry about before.
Right. Yeah. Well, I can see. Yeah. I say there's a whole new world of things that you probably never experienced before that you're going to be experiencing for the first time now as a female, and it's just kind of learning experience of basically what something a girl learns when she's 15, 16, 17 years old. You're learning at age 47. It's different. I got one more question for you, and it was the biggest question that I had for the whole thing. And this is a personal question myself, okay?
Sure.
Your kids, obviously there's the bond there. We've talked about that, everything. Taking all the transgender stuff out of the equation completely. Your bond with them after being divorced from their mom. That's a huge thing that we see with dads and moms and stuff that don't get to see their kids as often as every day like they would like to. They're living in split households. I've struggled with this myself with my 12-and-a-half-year-old daughter. Our relationship is not the way that I would like it to be because of things that her mom has done over the years and being separated from her off and on. I'm now going through that with my will be 4-year-old and 2-year-old son, where they're not with me every day. And especially looking at boys, those are my boys, and they're just like me. What is the biggest piece of advice for somebody like me that you can give me as far as keeping those kids at and keeping them close to you and battling through all that? Because I know you had struggles with that. You had to.
For sure. Yeah, it was the hardest thing in the world, honestly. Like coming home and used to be, coming home to a house with 3 young boys running around, and the second I run in the door, they're all jumping to give me hugs, and there's always noise and laughter, and then coming home to this empty, quiet place, it was really difficult for me.
Sure.
And I would come home and bawl my eyes out, like it was the worst thing. And but what the positive things I would say out of it, the things I would say to focus on with your own kids is, because your time's going to be limited, make every moment count. When they're with you, do everything you can to give them your undivided attention and make that quality time. When my boys are with me, even now, like, their mom and I have been divorced, 13, 14 years now.
Right.
Still, when they're with me, they come first. Everything else is second. And the other thing is always be honest with them about everything. And this can be difficult. And to be honest, I possibly didn't do the best job of this all the time, even though I tried. But another important thing too is to not let if there's animosity or bad feelings between you and their mom, let that come in the way of them. Like, it's really important not to badmouth the other parent in front of them. Sure. Because even if it's all true, and even if, the other person's treating you horribly and taking it, the kids are going to figure that stuff out. They know what's going on. But like parents that, complain to their kids about the other parent constantly, or say lots of bad things, or like try to manipulate them to be on their side, some of that may work in the short term, but kids are going to figure everything out. And the worst thing is it makes them feel like they're in the middle, and it makes them feel pressure, like they have to choose. And no matter what happens, both of you are their parents, and they love both of you. And doing that just makes them feel bad, and in the end, will make them resent you. Right. So just try really hard not to do that. I mean, there were times I'd catch myself. I mean, I had a rough, like just like most people, divorce is a rough process. It's a terrible thing, and it pits people against each other, especially if you get lawyers involved. And there was some stuff that their mom did that really, really upset me, and I think I was very justified being upset, but sometimes I would catch myself complaining about her in front of them or to them, and then I realized, like, I can't be doing this. This is not a good thing, and it does not, if anything, it just makes them feel weird being in the middle. And I knew, too, that her and her new husband would do stuff like that, too, and I knew that they really hated that. So I try really, really hard not to do that. And work with your ex as much as you can to make everything is I think the important thing is to keep in mind is just that it's about the children. It's not about you. It's not about your ex. It's about them. And you just got to keep them the priority. And sometimes maybe you have to suck it up. And sometimes, there's going to be crappy things that you just have to deal with. But ultimately it's for them, and they'll know those things. And when they, because there were things my ex told them that wasn't true, about me and stuff like that. And they figure that stuff out when they get older. And, sure. And, that's, and then you trying to like defend yourself or, plead your case, all it does is make them feel like they're in the middle, and it makes them feel torn. And, so make every minute count, always be honest with them, be careful not to put them in the middle, and, just spend as much time as you can with them and be there for everything that you can be. I mean, for me, I'd be working nights, and I wouldn't sleep. I would go to work Friday night, work from 10 p.m. till 7:30 in the morning, leave work, drive halfway across the state to my son's wrestling tournament, stay there all day till tournament was over, and then come back just in time to go back to work. So I wouldn't sleep from Friday afternoon until Sunday morning, and to go to my son's wrestling tournaments every weekend. But to me, it was 100% worth it. And I knew that they appreciated that stuff, and they know the effort I put in to be there for them. And that time's limited. They only grow up once. And once those years are gone, you're never going to get that chance back. Right. So, like, really make every minute count.
Yeah, I mean, I went through that with the bad mouthing and stuff back and forth with my first wife, with my daughter. And I said, I'll never do that again, because it didn't accomplish anything. What it did was it created way too much animosity between the two of us, to where it helped to a lot of the things that she did too, helped to ruin or kind of delay that relationship. We've got a better relationship now to this day. Now she's kind of like you said, figured some things out for herself, and she's 12 and a half, and she can make decisions for herself. But with my boys, just like you said, I used to come home from work, and the first thing is they're jumping on me. They want to wrestle in the living room and stuff, and I'm showing my oldest one wrestling moves, and we're having a good time. And now they're not here every day, so I just had them this past weekend. I made sure that I spent as much time with them as possible, with both of them, and as much quality time. I just wanted to get your take on that, because clearly you did a really good job through that whole thing because of the way your kids interact with you, and you could just see it in the movie how much, the first scene where you see your kids is they get out of the car, you come greet them outside, and your son just jumps on you and he's hanging on you and you're hugging him. That to me, that was quintessential of good parenting through a shitty situation. I said, take the transgender thing out of it completely. Just the fact of going through divorce and having that relationship still with them at their ages. Clearly, you did a great job. I just wanted to get your take on that, because for me, it's that's scary for me. I want to make sure I have that kind of relationship with my kids in 10, 12 years.
And I guess I would just add to that too, that never, and people do this, but one of the things really be cautious about is never ever pressure them not to spend time with the other parent. Sure. So that's one thing I never did. Like if they're, I wanted to spend as much time as I could with them, and there were sometimes like I felt like I was getting cheated out of time that should have been mine. But I never ever said that to the boys, and I never put them in the middle, and I never said, you guys should be with me more, and you need to tell your mom that you're supposed to be here. I handled all that stuff with her and tried to leave them out of it. I didn't ever want them to feel pressured. Right. And I would always tell them, like, hey, it's my weekend, and I want to see you guys really bad, but if things came up, like let's say they had something special with their friends going on or something like that, let them do it. I would let them, hey, I understand if you want to do stuff with your friends, especially once they get to the teenage years and they get older. Max now is a senior. He hangs out with his friends a lot on weekends, and we joke back and forth, about him not, his brothers will be here and they'll joke that, they love me more than he does because he's spending but, stuff like that. Yeah. But then, it's all a joke. And they never felt pressure from me that you have to come to my house. And, and I never put them in the middle. Like I never ever said, will you tell your mom, that it's my weekend or this or that. Like I left them out of it. And like I said, anything, you never ever want them to feel like they're in the middle. And, cause that's a really tough situation. I mean, divorces are just so hard on kids to begin with. Oh yeah. And, and that's one thing I never wanted, I never wanted that. And for that very reason. So it just, like I said, quality time, try to keep them from ever feeling like they're in the middle. And just, love them the best way you can. And let them know that love's unconditional. That was one thing I've always been really big about, too. Like, I don't, I was a big athlete. I loved that my boys were into sports. But when Max, Max wrestled, my youngest, he wrestled for about, I think, 4 years from, junior high up through his sophomore year of high school. And then he said to me, before his junior year, he's like, I don't think I want to wrestle this year. And, of course, I asked him why and everything. And he just said, he's really not that into it. It's a lot of work, and he doesn't really enjoy it anymore. And I said, all right, that's your decision, and I respect that. And I never, because, it's really easy to be like, even sometimes when you want the best for them, but, you got to keep in mind it's their life. And, it's what makes them happy. It's not, I hate to see parents, especially dads, can be bad about this sometime where they're trying to live through their kids or, or want their kids to be, the best athlete or the best student or whatever to make them proud. No, it's not about you. They're not your little robot. They're not your thing to brag about. Right. It's about being happy and fulfilling their own lives. And if they want to choose a path that's completely different than yours, hey, more power to them. I told my boys, I don't care whatever you want to do, but whatever makes you happy, that's all I want for you. Do something you're passionate about. Do it 100% and do what makes you happy. And if that's something completely different than what I like, that's okay. Yeah, definitely. I appreciate you coming on. This has been awesome. Like I said, it was a thrill for me to be able to interview you and stuff. I've been following your career for a long time, so I really appreciate you taking the time out to do this. If you ever want to come back on again, just let me know.
and we'll get you back on.
Oh, thank you so much it's an honor to be on here, and thank you for letting me share my story and, talk to all your listeners. And if you'd love to have me on again, I'd love to. We could talk more lifting stories.
Sure. That would be great. And when you see Todd next, kick his ass for me. Because the little fucker was supposed to be he decided to go AWOL. He probably forgot, but whatever. I didn't remind him today earlier, but it is Todd, so who knows, he might be sleeping. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much for coming on. And then I'm gonna get this we'll probably get this posted here in a couple of weeks, and I'll tag you and stuff in it so you can share it up if you want and all that good stuff. So
all right, sounds great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. So for Janae Kroc, this is Keith Fabbri, the Weekly Grind Podcast, sponsored by Valhalla Labs at valhalla-labs.com. And we will be back the next episode. This was episode 60. 61, I believe I'm having Bill Toko on, but I have to get that confirmed yet. So again, thanks for coming on, Janae, and have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night as well.